The Campaign of Gipuzkoa was part of the Spanish Civil War, where the Nationalist Army conquered the northern province of Gipuzkoa, held by the Republic. Background: in late July, Mola's troops suffered a shortage of ammunition. Then Francisco Franco sent him large supplies of ammunition and weapons from Italy and Germany via Portugal. On August 13, Mola met Franco in Seville and decided to capture San Sebastian and Iran in order to cut the Basques off from the French border at the western end of the Pyrenees. The campaign. Advance on San Sebastian. The campaign was initially conceived by General Emilio Mola as an advance to Iran to cut the northern provinces off from France, and to link up with the nationalist garrison in San Sebastian that was to have seized that city. The campaign was diverted from the advance on Iran when the direct route to the town was blocked by the demolition of the bridge at Endarlatso. When word came that the Nationalists in San Sebastian were besieged in the Cuartel de Loyola, Alfonso Biolegui diverted all his forces westward toward that town in an attempt to relieve the nationalist garrison. Two other nationalist columns advanced on the city from points further west with the intent of cutting it off from Biscay. Nevertheless, on the 27th of July, the nationalist garrison in San Sebastian surrendered. Advance on Iran. Following the failure to relieve the siege of the nationalists in San Sebastian, the forces of Biolegui resumed their advance on Iran to cut off the northern provinces of Gipuzkoa, Biscay, Santander and Asturias, for the source of arms and support in France by taking that city. On August 11, the nationalists took Tolosa and Biolegui seized Picoqueta, a key ridge commanding the approach to Iran. Telis Fromonzon, a Basque nationalist, traveled to Barcelona to seek aid, but he only got 1,000 rifles, and the Basque nationalists confiscated the gold in the local branch of the Bank of Spain to buy weapons in France. But on August 8 the French government closed the frontier. On August 17, the rebel battleship España, the cruiser Almirante Cervera and the destroyer Velasco arrived at San Sebastian and started to shell the city. After that, German Ju-52 bombers and other Italian planes shelled on a daily basis the bordering towns of Hondarribia and Iran, as well as San Sebastian. Furthermore, the nationalists captured the Republican commander in Gipuzkoa, Perez Garmendia. Fall of Iran and San Sebastian. On August 26, Biolegui began the assault on Iran. The poorly armed and untrained leftist and Basque nationalist militias fought bravely but could not fend off the rebel push. After bloody combats, the resisting forces were overwhelmed. Thousands of civilians and militiamen fled in panic across the French border on September 3, 1936. The town was occupied that day. Biolegui was wounded and died a month later. Enraged by the lack of ammunition, retreating anarchists burned parts the city. The nationalists followed this up with the capture of San Sebastian on September 13. The dying General Biolegui could still preside over the parade of triumphant far-right rebel troops entering the city with no fighting. A sizable number of the city's 80,000 inhabitants fled on an exodus towards Biscay. British field journalist George L. Steer sets the figure of the terrified population fleeing to Bilbao at 30,000. Basque Nationalist Party officials arranged for the final orderly evacuation of the city before its fall, holding back the anarchists, small in number, who were planning to wreak havoc. Despite their evacuation, 485 were killed at the city as a result of pseudo-trials mounted by the Spanish rebel troops in the aftermath of the city's occupation up to 1943. But during the first months of occupation, approximately 600 were murdered in paseos. Among them, Steer cites the execution of 17 priests of Basque nationalist sympathies. The city mayor also faced summary execution. The nationalist rebels advanced further west. They were stopped by the Republicans at Burenza for a few days, but continued the push until the outer fringes of Biscay. There, the resistance of the northern provincial forces and the exhaustion of the nationalists resulted in an end of the offensive until the war in the north began. Aftermath. The Nationalists conquered 1,000 square miles of terrain and many factories. Furthermore, they cut loss the Basques from the friendly France. Then, Indalecio Prieto, the Republican Minister of Defense, sent the Republican fleet to the northern ports in order to prevent a rebel blockade. On occupation during September, a Commission Gestora, a management commission, was appointed by the rebels comprising the factions involved in the military insurrection, i.e., Carlists, Phalangists, and others. It was chaired during the first months by the local Carlist leader Antonio Arauz. After taking over San Sebastian, speaking in the Basque language was frowned upon immediately after, forbidden by proclamation. Occupation was followed by harsh repression against inconvenient figures and individuals. Among them, the Basque clergy was specifically targeted and exposed to torture and rapid execution for the family ties and/or proximity to Basque nationalist proponents and ideas. In general, they were searched according to blacklists put together in Pamplona. Despite occasional internal protests within the ecclesiastic hierarchy, they did not go far. A widespread purge of the clergy in Gipuzkoa was decided in the high military and ecclesiastic circles. The hatred underlying the crackdown was evidenced by the assassination of José Arizonte Muno Itzal, tortured and shot on the 18th of October in the Hernani Cemetery, along with other ecclesiastic and civilian victims found fleeing.